Welcome to Ex Machina. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
Good evening, folks. Thank you for joining us on another edition of Ex Machina. Computer's acting a little glitchy tonight. It just suddenly stopped. Had some internet issues earlier, so kind of bear with us. Hopefully things stabilize and we won't have any issues. Joining me in the studio tonight is Robbie Rip Rains, Ryan the Wendigo Guy, and Kerry Pocket Doc Davis. Boys, how you guys doing tonight?
Wyatt, I am rolling.
The horrors persist, but so do I.
Doing pretty good.
Pretty good. I love that, Rocky.
Pretty good.
Giggity.
Giggity. We got a pretty full house already. Got quite a few people in the chat. The chat's already moving pretty fast. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. And again, folks, if you are new to the channel or you're one of the ones that are watching that have not yet liked or subscribed to the channel, please do so. Only takes a second, doesn't cost you anything, and it really does help us continue to grow. I'm pretty happy with the success of the story time the other night, the campfire tales, and that's something we're definitely going to repeat. One of the ideas we've been possibly kicking around is since not everybody can make it, to 3 shows a week, possibly doing one live show where we talk cryptids and one that's a story time. Or it's always a possibility we could do 3 shows a week. It does take time away from my writing, though. So let us know what you all think, and we'd love to hear from you guys and hear your opinions, and we'll kind of gauge things from there. But I think we definitely had an overwhelmingly positive response to the story hour.
Yeah,
Nice.
Absolutely. It was fun, too. Had a good time doing it.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. It's something I'm looking forward to doing again. I think we'll probably start with I'm thinking Demons 1 this week.
Oh, that'd be good. Very cool.
And that'll probably take the full 2 hours because that's a pretty long story.
Yeah, and if y'all subscribe to Patreon, you have already seen it, but it's always fun to have it read out loud. Just is.
I think it adds a level to it.
I do too. I agree.
Definitely.
especially when you got a reader like Doc. Brings the smoke. I heard somebody say that. No, I literally read somebody, that third reader brought the smoke, and I'm like, oh, Smokey.
Maybe it's my radio voice. I don't know.
It was funny. I was like,
Sunday.
Jay, I'm just drinking water tonight. Been trying to watch what I eat and drink here lately. Starting to gain some weight back, and I'm trying to.
Yep. I'm watching it.
So, boys, tonight we're going to be talking about the Rougarou.
Oh yeah.
I know Ryan's got some Cajun blood in him, and Doc's got Cajun connections down in the Delta, and Robbie's got Cajun connections. I'm the only one without any Cajun family. I mean,
oh, you don't belong here, then. Get out of here.
Just Missouri hillbillies.
I guarantee.
Well, since this is a more Cajun themed show, how about one of you Cajun fellows start us out by telling us about the Rougarou legend? Ryan,
take it away, Robbie. No, Robbie can start, man. Robbie's the guy.
Well, I don't know about that. I know a little bit about it. Ryan, you probably know more about it than I do, but I'll give it a shot.
Far away.
So, and Doc and I said this last time we started talking about Cajuns. Cajuns love mixing stuff up, adding different ingredients to make what they're talking about. I mean, if you know, right, Doc?
That's true.
The French word for werewolf is loup-garou. So, redneck Cajuns, this is where I think a lot of it started. There's actually plenty of lore to back up the creature itself, but the pronunciation I think just came from redneck Cajuns trying to pronounce Rougarou, and it came out
Oh.
Rougarou.
I got to stop you already, Robbie. I got to stop you already.
I said I think.
So-
I didn't say it. I said I think.
Okay, so what actually happened? So what happened is when the French settlers first arrived in Louisiana, they were trying to teach the Blackfoot the French language, okay? And with the term Rougarou, what happened, the Blackfoot couldn't pronounce Lougarou correctly. So Rougarou was actually a mispronunciation. That's how we arrived at the name Rougarou.
Kind of what I said, except I just didn't have the part that they were teaching somebody else. So,
Yeah, they couldn't pronounce it. They actually could not pronounce Lougarou at all for some reason. And they kept saying Rougarou, Rougarou all the time. And so eventually the French Catholics just kind of adopted that term.
But the thing about that term is it holds the same weight with a lot of Cajuns, not all, but a lot of Cajuns, as Skinwalker does with the Navajo. There's a lot of I've got family members who that some of them that say it, they don't care. There's some that will not say the word because they believe it conjures it up. And
yeah.
So
Jake Freiberg wants to know what's the difference between Cajun and Creole.
I got that.
Go ahead, Doc.
Cajun is your people from the Bayou. They're from Acadian French, and so they have their own patois that they speak when they talk. And then you've got the Creole, which is it's mixed blood people. It's French, Spanish, and African,
Haitian, right?
French, Haitian, and Spanish. And so, and you've got there is still a lot of people that speak the French patois. So the Creole will speak that. The Cajun will speak that. Like my buddy Ross Begno that I work with, he's got folks down there. I got family in Ponchatoula, Hammond, Bro Bridge, Lafayette. I mean, you're in Boudin country, son.
Boudin.
And so that's the difference between Cajun and a lot of people will intermix it, but it's two totally different cultures, man.
Yep.
Two totally different cultures.
They do have some crossovers that they have,
right?
But they come from two separate cultures, totally.
Yeah. My only explanation was going to be that Tony Sacherays is Cajun and Slap Your Mama's Creole.
I
like Tony Sacherays better. I put that on everything.
I grew up on Tony's, man. Heck yeah.
That was very informative, DA.
That was about the beginning and ending of my knowledge of Cajun versus Creole. It's a different seasoning.
I've never heard it put like that, but that's funny. Oh, Lord.
No, but Robbie, you had a point, though. I mean, the Rougarou is a lot like a Skinwalker in the religious belief. I mean, the Cajun and Creole, they do have a very strong religious tie to the whole Rougarou legend. It's, it is very similar to the Naranushi. So.
Yeah, and like I said, there's, just like there's some Navajo who will brave speaking about it. Not a whole lot, but there's some Cajuns who will talk about it, but there's some that absolutely will not mention that name. Now, I think that's where the similarities stop, because there's like the whole thing of how you get it to not come in your house. You put 13 coins down in front of your door frame.
Right.
Because it doesn't know how to start over. So it'll just constantly count the 13 and not know where to go from that. And that's how you keep it at bay until the morning time. There's all kinds of little quirks like that of how you can keep it from coming into your house.
It's weird, the correlation between the counting of the coins and the Irish version of the Fae, where if you spill sand or rice, you can trap the Fae because they got to stop and count it.
Also, vampires, you throw out mustard seed.
Yep. Well, think about their religious annotations, though. I mean, 13 coins, right? 13 pieces of silver. So that's something taken right from the Bible,
Yeah.
Yep. The 13 pieces of silver that Judas Iscariot was paid. That's why 13, I think, is really significant. Like 13 is an unlucky number. Well, where did that come from? It probably came from that in some way, shape, fashion, or form.
Yeah, I would think so.
Well, we get the Friday the 13th superstition because it was a Friday the 13th when the Pope ordered the execution of the Templars.
That's true.
So
That's true.
weird how that number keeps cropping up.
Yeah.
13 always has been a lucky number for me, so I don't see the tripping out over the number 13.
There's a lot of.
Mark Napier says it was 30 pieces of silver.
Mm.
I mean, in the Bible, yeah, I think he's right. I think it was 30 pieces of silver.
I'm not arguing with Mark's preacher. I'm not arguing with him. But
Yeah, nobody's arguing.
13 is significant in a lot of different things, though. But if you look at a lot of the Nordic calendars, they had 13 months instead of
Yeah, it was
12.
13 months in the Norse year for
Yeah.
the number of full moons in a year.
Well,
Yeah.
we used to have 13 months, and it was all four separate weeks of 28 days.
Mhm.
So
Oh.
And to me, that makes more sense.
makes a lot more sense.
I agree.
But if you notice, a lot of hotels
Won't have a 13th floor.
They don't have a 13th floor.
It's so funny you say that, Doc. Where I live in the apartment complex, there's no apartment 13. It goes 12, skips over 13, goes right to 14.
See, and it's so funny that even today in our quote unquote modern society, we still have that superstition behind there, which is
Hey, Bowers is absolutely right. 13 doesn't bother me near as much as somebody saying the Q word in the middle of your shift.
well, and also, oh God, don't ever say that.
Smack somebody if
13 steps to the gallows were very common too. So yeah, that's Arkansas. I can't.
Especially 13 loops in the hangman's noose.
In a hangman's noose, yeah. Like in Mississippi, if you, I know that was like something. Unless you were an executioner, if they caught anybody tying a noose or whatever, and it had 13 loops, that was a jailable offense. And
really?
As well, yeah.
Wow.
It was a crime.
You learn something new every day.
That was an old thing, like from the 1800s. But
it's really bizarre how these old superstitions in the modern enlightened age still have a lot of us firmly in their grips. I mean, I grew up listening to my mom's stories of some of the Ozark superstitions, and you can ask my wife. I'll drive 5 miles out of my way to avoid crossing a black cat's path.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, my cousins down that lived in Louisiana, and we would play in the Pearl River Swamp down there between Picayune and Mississippi and Slidell, Louisiana, and they would talk about the Rougarou.
Yeah,
we got to go. The Rougarou's going to get us, or Mama said, if we're not good, the Rougarou going to get us. And something. I mean, it was just all. It was.
Yeah.
It was. That's the 70s and 80s, but it was still very strong then.
Oh, my dad used to talk about it when I was a little kid. If I was in trouble, he used to tell me all the time, the Rougarou's going to get you now, Ryan. Yep. You're not behaving. You misbehave like that, the Rougarou's going to find its way in here tonight. So he used to scare the crap out of me as a little kid, though, man. I'm surprised I'm not traumatized.
My uncle was from Slidell, and the first time that I ever went down there, I remember him telling me stories about that, and I remember my mom getting real mad because she's like, "Don't tell him that, you're going to scare him half to death." And I'm like, "No, I want to hear this."
Right? You better be good. Yeah, that Rougarou going to get you.
Yep.
I'm going to throw you guys into a tizzy here. Just like with the title of the show. Do you think that the Rougarou is an actual curse, a werewolf, or just a misidentified dogman?
There's so many theories on this.
There are.
I can go from what I was told as a kid. It's a mixture of a werewolf and a curse. It's a werewolf curse, essentially, that, if you break Catholic rules, you're going to become the Rougarou. And, the curse can be passed on if you look it in the eyes. That's kind of a scary thought, that if you see a Rougarou and he looks you in the eyes and you look him back, you're next in the line to become a Rougarou.
And I agree with that. It wasn't just an early attempt to explain the Dogman phenomenon, because there are lots of Dogman stories out of Louisiana.
I agree with that, Ryan, but you got to think that there are certain parts that I've heard people describe a Rougarou as a basically a alligator, an upright alligator.
There's a reason for that, though. There's a reason for that, Robbie, because the Blackfoot Indians, when it came to other creatures like Bigfoot, the Blackfoot is actually kind of unique in a way because they didn't have any unique names for Bigfoot. Like most tribes actually have a name that they use particularly for Bigfoot. They didn't have one. So any kind of creature that was unusual, they kind of slapped the Rougarou label on it because they were taught by the French. Rougarou is a monster that, you know, was once a man, broke some rules, and it's cursed to be this wild beast. So when the tribes would see anything that was unusual, they would say, "Oh, that's the Rougarou." So that kind of explains that a little bit.
I'm throwing this out there as devil's advocate, but I happen to think, just personally, that it might just be a misidentified Dogman. I mean, look how many times. I think that's the same with the werewolf curse. I think people saw a Dogman type creature because we know they've been seeing them since, you know, the times of the Greeks and the Romans and long before then. You know, I think the werewolf curse, the curse of the werewolf, was an attempt to explain why this Dogman creature was suddenly there. I don't necessarily think that it is an actual curse or it's somebody that's shifting form. I think, you know, somebody went in the woods and then this creature came out and they're like, it must have been JoJo coming, went in there, turned into a monster and got to come out after us.
It's possible.
I mean, if you think about it too, I mean, there is that version of the, you know, it's like somebody just mentioned, if they break Lent, you know, it's gonna be cursed or whatever. It's deeply rooted in the Catholic faith there too. But if you look at, you know, French loup, L-O-U-P, loup means wolf, and then garou is like an old amalgam. It means a man who transforms into a wolf. So the loup-garou was a man who transforms into a wolf. And I mean, if that was, they were saying that over in France, right? They were saying that in France before they came here.
Yeah.
So obviously, there had been stories or maybe people seeing stuff way back then before they even came to the States. And that's where they, like you said, that's where they brought that to the Indians and were trying to teach them to say Rougarou. Because, I mean, obviously, if they're speaking in their native tongue, they had some stories from their native land. I don't know.
That's possible.
So I wonder, BA. I mean, are there old French legends, tales of a wolf man?
Well, yeah, of course there are. The Loup-Garou, if you look at the Beast of Gévaudan, I mean, I think killed like 120, 130 people over a period of several years. But when it was killed, it didn't change back.
Right.
That's the one I was referring to. I was baiting you into the question because I remember we had talked about the Beast of Gévaudan in a show, which was actually really cool.
There's another one, though, that you guys are skipping over. It's one of the most important ones, even though it's a German story. The German and the French did exchange stories. Peter Stube, okay? He was a guy that he would wear a belt, and he killed a lot of people. I mean, this dude went on killing sprees, guys, and he favored young women, pregnant women, and kids. You know, and he claimed to be a werewolf. He told all the police when they caught him, I did it because I'm a werewolf.
How do we know he just wasn't a serial killer and used that as an excuse?
Right. But if you look at the way he killed people,
if he buckled on a wolf's pelt and then went on a killing spree, you know, people would say this guy, you know, had the head of a wolf. If he had the thing gutted out like the Ulfhednar did, they would wear the headdress, wear the wolf's head like a headdress, and
there you go.
Yeah, it could just be, you know, like we said, any technology sufficiently advanced appears as magic to people who don't understand it. In a situation when people don't understand, they're going to immediately ascribe something that's supernatural to it. Example I like to point out is how the Norse used to think that the Northern Lights was the light of the Bifrost reflecting off the armor of the Valkyries, and we know that's not it. It's a cool explanation, but we know that's not it. We know it's electromagnetic energy in the upper atmosphere.
Right.
You know, at a primitive time when we didn't know what electromagnetic energy was, and we didn't know what the aurora borealis was, every culture had different explanations for what it was.
Yeah.
And just because they ascribed supernatural abilities to it didn't make it true.
But you got to remember, DA, superstition was a way of life back then. Like, they weren't happy without their superstition. You know, there had to be some magical explanation for everything back in those days. So.
William says, never doubt what you don't want to see with your own eyes. I'm not afraid to see stuff like that. I mean, yeah, it might be scary, it might be terrifying, but I still want to see it.
From a distance.
Yeah, probably, but probably a safe distance, but
yeah,
we don't always get that luxury. But I do believe that there are, just like with any legend, there's a kernel of truth in it. I do believe that there's some basis for these superstitions, but I don't know that they're truly supernatural.
Right. Totally on board with that.
I mean, let's throw out a Bigfoot example here. There's so many people that say it cloaks. That but then we watch the Paul Freeman film, and he's filming a large adult male black Bigfoot, and it walks over in front of a tree and stops moving and disappears. It didn't get beamed up by Scotty. It didn't go through a portal. It didn't reach down and turn on its cloaking field on its belt. It has clear hair shafts, and it took on the color of the surrounding trees. It stopped moving, and it picked up the light around it. When Freeman got closer, it starts moving. That is a perfect example of adaptive camouflage, not cloaking, not teleporting, not portaling, adaptive camouflage.
Right. So, yeah, I saw a comment in chat where they were saying the Rougarou is more of a Bigfoot than a Dogman, and that's not true at all. Not true at all. In the Cajun culture, Bigfoot is very much its own entity, and the Rougarou is its own separate entity, too. So the two aren't hand in hand.
I think there's a much closer association between Bigfoot and Père Malfait.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's much of an association between a Rougarou and a Bigfoot. I think it's far closer related to a Dogman.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Or maybe just be a subtype.
Yeah, I would agree.
Now, I'm not saying that there isn't a whole set of Cajun lore built up around it, but just because lore was built up doesn't make it right. It could be just them trying to explain the Dogman phenomenon in the deep woods. Because I guarantee those things don't want to be found. They're not going to be found.
Well, when I was growing up, my dad used to tell me it wasn't just like a Rougarou, it was a they. So when he said they, he meant there's more than one out there.
Right.
I'm going to believe him.
Oh, yeah.
Roxanne Delgado says, Ryan, I read a curse that the Rougarou, after 1 year and so many days, if it finds the human, the curse transfers to the human and the Rougarou goes back to human.
Yep. That's what I was taught as a boy, too. Yep.
That's an interesting look at the superstition, but in practice, has it ever really happened? Have there been documented cases of a guy that disappeared for a year and plagued a village as a Rougarou, and then a year later come back in and somebody else is now the Rougarou? Or is that just superstition?
Well, you got to remember that that religion, it's very closed off. Like, if you didn't come from that place as an outsider, they're not going to tell you about things. It's almost like the Navajo again with the skinwalkers. If you're not in that circle, you're not going to learn anything about it. So could there be cases that we don't know of? Sure. But I kind of think it's almost like an allegory. Like, somebody saw a Dogman, they weren't ready for it, and it traumatized them. What happens when you get traumatized? Sometimes you get really aggressive. Sometimes you're hyper. Sometimes you're just not acting like yourself. So I could see, like, if somebody saw a Dogman and they were acting strange, these people would be like, oh, he's a Rougarou now because he saw one.
Right.
That would make sense.
William Nighthawk says, keep the blinders on. Do you believe in God? Why? You can't see him. It's called faith. I do have faith.
Sure.
But I also know that people will exaggerate the crap out of everything. I've gone to crime scenes where they said the guy was 7 feet tall and carried a 44 Magnum, and he was 5'2" and had a 22. People exaggerate. especially when they're scared. When you get that adrenaline dump, people will explain things in the craziest possible terms, especially if they don't understand what they saw. I'm not saying that there's no such thing as magic. I'm not saying it doesn't exist in the world. But what I'm saying is a lot of these cases of superstition are probably likely to be something that has a physical description. They just didn't know what it was.
Right.
And to just look at any mystery and go, supernatural, that's a complete disservice to investigating any of this. If I went to a crime scene, found the house was locked, and looked inside and saw the guy was dead from a gunshot, but didn't have a gun in his hand, and I went, somebody must have teleported in and killed him, I'd be out for a psych eval. You cannot approach any of these, even ones that are deeply rooted in superstition. You cannot approach them expecting it to be portals, telepathy, mind speak, whatever the hell you want to call it. You can't approach these with going straight to that answer. You have to eliminate everything along the way, and to do so, to just jump straight to those, is a complete disservice to the investigative process. We've got to prove these things are even animals before we can prove that God brought them here, or the aliens brought them here to look over the underworld, or this thing telepathically spoke to me and told me it was going to make me a king of the planet. These insane claims like that are what's destroying this field. They've ruined the credibility of people that do actual research, that look for these things as being monsters, as being something that has been around for at least 1,000 years or more, something that's part of the natural world that we were told was not. We know for a fact giant bones have been hidden by the Smithsonian, but to immediately say, oh, well, it came from beyond the stars, it can cloak, it can walk through portals, bliggity blob, all of this. If any of that were true at all, and even a small percentage of those things ate us, which we do believe they do, well, guess what? It wouldn't be a damn thing we could do to stop them. They'd walk into any house, any room, any person in this country and kill them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'll try to get off my soapbox. I just got a little pissed off about that one.
Whoa. Yeah, you went on a tangent there, DA. Well, let me bring a different view to that, though. Like you, DA, I do believe we have to look at every nook and cranny. Okay, we have to overturn every stone, and we have to actually, look into things that are a possibility that give a physical description. But because of my time with William and the other people from tribes, I do believe that there are supernatural elements to some things. I don't think that the Bigfoot cloak. I don't think that they're all just trying to walk into our house and eat us. But I do agree most with what you're saying, though. I think there are supernatural elements that we have to consider, though. Will we ever answer those with science? Maybe, maybe not. But, we have to accept that there are supernatural things.
But my point is, just because we can't explain it now doesn't mean there isn't an explanation.
No, I totally get what you're saying. I do. I think
we lost Doc.
Yeah, Doc dropped off.
Nah, he just turned his camera off. I think he heard something.
I mean, I don't know. I kind of hold the view that we're not humans having a spiritual experience. I think we're spirits having a human experience. That's what I believe.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, but my problem is there's so much of people claiming teleportation, cloaking, mind speak, all of this stuff, and there's zero proof for any of it. Now, we've got thousands upon thousands of eyewitness reports of Bigfoot and Dogman, yet, we're having a hard enough time getting people to accept that they're out there without throwing in all of this hoodoo that really didn't even appear before like the 1970s and 60s. If you look at the older reports, there's none of that in it.
That's true. I know. And I know where you're coming from. I totally get where you're coming from, DA, and I do support you on that. And I think that a lot of times people throw in the supernatural parts to explain why they don't have evidence. It's a lazy man's way out. It's a way of saying, oh, well, I didn't get photos because it cloaked, or, I didn't get photos because it mind spoke to me and told me not to do photos. So I get where you're coming with that.
Robbie, you're off quiet.
I was answering a question. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
There's Doc.
Yep. There was a Voices. Did y'all see this one? From personal experience, Rougarou is a dogman. Swamps of Louisiana have dogman just like the coastal areas of Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida.
Well, what are the personal experiences that you have, though, to say that Rougarou is in fact a dogman? I mean,
Or
what
do
do you have?
Or do you have Rougarou and dogman?
Yeah, I mean, what is it that verified that they're one and the same? I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just asking the important questions of what was it that verified that for you? What was the process behind it? And I think we missed a question from prospecting there. I'm not sure what his question was.
I didn't see it.
Uh-oh. Doc done got into the safe.
I don't see the question.
Prospecting, can you ask your question again? We missed it. I'm sorry. I do think we have to be very careful, though, DA. I think that when we're dealing with something that's of a religious belief, we do have to be able to look at all possibilities, but we do have to take into account the stories told as well. Because the stories are a very important part of it. It's like when I do the investigations for the skinwalkers. Even though I'm scientific minded, I can't just disregard the shape-shifting and the magical abilities.
And I get that, and I know some stories are purely supernatural in origin. I think the Wendigo is probably a supernatural creature, but
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
because we can't explain it doesn't mean it's supernatural.
Agreed. I would definitely agree with you on that. I mean, the Nephilim theory is another theory that really throws a lot of wrenches into this cryptozoology machine, don't you think?
Yes and no. I mean, I understand the reference, but even if it is descended from Nephilim, doesn't mean it hasn't been here since before recorded history.
Right.
Rougarou sightings are people who are dogman sightings, whatever it is down in Louisiana. I mean, what are some of the more recent sightings? That's what I'm wondering about.
We don't really hear about them. That's the problem, Doc, is they don't come forward and say, hey, I saw a Rougarou. And that's again from the religious sphere. Because if somebody down in the bayou were to see the Rougarou and they went public with that sighting, the whole community that they live in is going to be up in a panic.
Voices on the Wind says visual observation of dogman pack with young and pups. Unless pack all shape shifts, then it's more than likely flesh and blood.
I'd agree. I mean, you don't hear about dogman pups too often, and I think that if people are seeing dogman pups, they got to start talking about that.
Prospecting says, thank you, Ryan. My question was, is there a Bigfoot in France? There are Bigfoot sightings in Europe. I would say there probably are in France as well, but the most prevalent I can think of are in the Black Forest of Germany.
Yes. Scotland, too. Scotland
the Gray Man.
Well. Yep.
Because he's wearing a kilt. Sorry. I almost broke Robbie on that one.
I'm trying not to laugh at that, Doc. You're a jerk for that, by the way, man. I'm trying to stay serious, Doc. Come on, man.
That'd be a great cartoon. Great little drawing.
No.
The Scottish dog man in a freaking kilt. At 8, here's what we're gonna do.
I'm gonna hit a ball.
I'm gonna eat ya.
Get in my belly.
Yeah, in my belly. No, for wee baby. You can keep the money. Give me the wee baby. Yeah, I mean, okay, so Prospecting says Danielle Barnett has found them in the UK.
Oh, the young man from the UK? Yeah, he has found Bigfoot in the UK.
And there have been documented dogmanning sightings in Australia, Europe, Asia, and even in the borders of the Pira Rice map, which is a map of Antarctica without ice on it. There are dogman and Bigfoot-like creatures hand drawn in the corners of that map.
Well, yeah, because I mean, I remember when Toom was here, God rest his soul. He had even talked about the Dogman sightings down there. So,
yeah,
miss that dude, man.
We were talking about him before the show, actually.
Oh man.
Yeah. After the show, Robbie can tell you, Ryan. Ryan, you can tell Doc. I mean,
yeah, it was a trippy experience, Doc. When you hear that, you're gonna be like, "What?" It made me do a double take. That's for darn sure.
Somebody just said, I just typed that what Doc said. I think Dogman with a kilt. Oh man.
Kevin Bode said, "Would the Scottish Dogman play golf?" I can't. Now I've got this visualization of a Scottish Dogman that looks like a Scottish Terrier, a little Scotty dog.
Playing golf.
It is so hard to stay serious with these people. Stop.
Hey. Can he play golf?
Greatest comedy skit ever was Robin Williams talking about when the Scots invented golf.
The invention of golf, yeah. Oh my
Look,
goodness.
no, 18 times.
So spiritual creature, flesh and blood creature. What's a consensus?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
There could be supernatural elements to it, but I think we're doing a disservice by immediately trying to use that as an explanation.
Yeah. Well, no,
I think
yeah.
flesh and blood until it's proven otherwise.
That's a valid stance, Robbie.
That's how I look at everything.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I mean by that is, maybe it is a spiritual thing that, in the essence, that it's a curse, and when that curse finds a home, it becomes, a tangible creature, and maybe once it becomes a vessel, finds a vessel and becomes a tangible creature, then it can be killed or whatever. Thus, it's flesh and blood, right?
So yeah. So you got the curse, which is invisible, and it moves into a person and becomes that creature. So, yeah.
Like the Wendigo, Wendigo, very similar to the Wendigo.
So it's a supernatural being, because there are paranormal aspects and natural aspects, and they blend, and there you go. There's well, I mean,
deny the existence of the supernatural. I've seen ghosts. I firmly believe there is a supernatural element to this world, but I don't think that should be our go-to to explain everything.
All right, well, let me pose a question to all three of you. Show of hands. How many of you believe that somebody can get possessed by a demon?
Yeah, I think it's possible.
Okay. All right. So if you believe in possession, then ergo, you also have to believe that the curse of the Rougarou can be a real thing as well. I know it kind of steps outside of the realm of science, but if you think a demon is a human body,
if you want to look at it in that aspect, Doc, what is the likelihood a person would survive that traumatic of physical change?
Oh yeah, we had covered this on the show. Just the caloric demand and the heat generation and everything for the physical transformation would be astounding. I mean, you would be your own freaking nuclear reactor.
Okay, all right. Let's go on with that. Let's carry that. Let's finish that thought out and carry that. So maybe the reason why Rougarou sightings aren't really being presented is because when somebody becomes one, like you were saying, Doc, all that happens to the human body and they die off, and people don't know where they went. Unless
there is a true supernatural component to it that shields them, insulates them somehow from the negative physiological reactions, chemical reactions, everything going on in the body. I mean, look at our body, man. We're a chemical factory. We're an electrical plant. We're a freaking septic plant. I mean, good Lord. And so just the sheer amount of energy would melt us. But if we're going paranormal, I mean, hell, why not? Let's go all the way. If we're going paranormal, could it be potentially that the curse insulates them, shields them from the negative side effects of the transformation physically?
Right. All right, let's go along that line of thinking then. So say a demon wants to enter somebody, right? And they're going to use this human's body for a purpose. They're going to make sure that the body's not too badly damaged during the transformation because they need that vessel, right? So there would have to be some means where they can, tamper with the whole transformation process and make sure it doesn't damage that body too much. Maybe the Rougarou does the same thing.
Maybe so. But what I've seen through possession, a lot of folks through possession, once that person is possessed by that entity, it does begin to break down the body. As far as you go into, people start going into multi-system organ failure, things because they're not eating. Maybe maybe that demon could be a parasitic entity. I don't know, and it could be something totally different. I mean, I know I'm getting way off the tangent here, but look at that comic book Venom.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good.
So it had to find the right host. Otherwise, it was basically killing anybody that it entered into. And so maybe that's something. Maybe that's something to consider. I don't know. I mean, if there's a supernatural aspect, a paranormal aspect to it, it wouldn't be too far-fetched because I've seen paranormal stuff.
Right. Okay. So see, there you go. You're thinking along the same lines that I am, Doc. So I'm glad you said that.
So I have seen paranormal stuff. So what's to say? I mean, I've seen stuff that defied explanation, and it happened right in front of me, and I saw them with these two little beady brown eyes. So I don't know. I mean, Robbie, what you think?
Well, if this hurts people's feelings, I'm sorry, not sorry. I'm not discounting anybody else's experience by me answering a question that Ryan asked me about what I think. It's what I think, not what I have. Your own experiences, that's fine. But I'm not forcing my opinion on anybody else. So don't expect me to bow into your experience. And I'm not you, Doc. I'm just saying there's
no. I know you're speaking in generalities. I get that.
I'm just saying my opinion is my opinion. I'm not forcing my opinion on anybody else.
Nope.
Ryan asked me a simple question and I answered it. That's how I feel. That's not discounting anybody's thing that they've had.
That's your opinion. You're entitled to it because
I've never seen a ghost, but that doesn't mean I say that they don't exist.
Right.
I've never seen them.
There you go.
And we could all be wrong. We could all be wrong. We could all be way off.
And this is
all speculation, dude. This is all speculation.
This is just what we were talking about. If somebody has a different opinion from you, everybody will say, push the panic button and say, "Oh, there." No, people can have different opinions and still be civil people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Maybe I'm not being civil right now, but I'm like DA. I'm getting tired of this. You got to believe my way. There's one person that is that way, and we're not that person. Believe what you want to believe. I don't care. Look, some of my best friends in the world, but if we have difference of opinions on anything, we're not going to have a knockdown drag out because Doc believes one thing and I believe another, and DA believes this, and Ryan believes. We're just going to have a conversation.
Yep. And that's what's needed. We need to learn how to converse, hear different thoughts, different opinions, and different ideas, because all we have are theories, opinions, and conjectures. There's not a single person out there that can say they know everything about Bigfoot, Dogman. If anybody ever tells you they know everything, they're a damn liar.
Yeah, they're no experts.
And we all know who people like that are. And that's what I'm saying. If we say something on this show that people disagree with, what does it matter? It's our opinion.
Yeah.
And like DA's always
goofball sitting on camera discussing our opinions on something that most people in the civilized world believe we're stupid for even believing in.
Right.
What does it matter if our opinion is different than yours?
I love this one from Kevin Bodie. He says, everyone is thinking the same. Somebody isn't thinking.
Ah, spot on, Kevin. Spot on.
I love that. And it's like DA said it so many times. None of us are saying we're experts. We're up here just basically for 2 hours on a lot of stuff, giving food for thought. What, you know, and opening up the round table for different opinions. And I think that is what we have been missing in society is having polite discourse and like they just said, you know, agree to disagree. And it's fine to have your own opinion. It doesn't mean you're right. It doesn't mean you're wrong, or not any more than it means I'm right or wrong. This is just a thing, because like what Ryan was saying, could this be a supernatural thing that becomes a natural thing, and it's a whole paranormal thing? Absolutely. Yep. We could be so far off the mark we couldn't hit a bull in the butt with a bass fiddle. You know what I'm saying? So it's just an opinion.
Yeah, I apologize for my tirade, but I get so tired of getting beat over the head because I don't agree with a lot of common theories. You know, I've left entire Facebook groups because I'm sick of, you know, if you ask a single question, then everybody dogpiles on you, you know, saying you're just being mean, you're being negative, you're sending bad vibes my way, whatever bullshit they want to say. And if you question their narrative, they dogpile on you, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of, you know, people shouting me down because they ascribe all this mumbo jumbo to something we haven't even proven exists yet.
Mm-hmm. Well, DA, why are you apologizing for your rant? You shouldn't apologize for that. You were giving your opinion. You know, somebody would come up here and argue your opinion and not apologize for it. Why are you apologizing for yours?
Because that's the kind of person he is. He's a different person than all these other people. That's why, Ryan.
I don't generally like to rant like that. I mean, I try to present my case logically, but I just...
No, you're right, Ryan. I'm just saying that's the difference.
Yeah, I know. And I respect that he apologized, but I don't think he should.
I agree, but I'm just saying that's why. And, you know, I was sitting up there having a conversation with my dad, and I said, my stepdad, I feel more and more like him every day, because I'm getting to the point where I just don't care if I hurt somebody's feelings or not. Mm-hmm. And I try to refrain. I try to have your own opinions. It really does not matter. But if you're going to ask me my opinion, then don't sit here and get mad because I don't agree with what your opinion is.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Yep.
And like, not so perfect. It's not going to change. Just move on, do your thing. That's the nature of people in the community, and in the world. Some people. I mean, you could be sitting there telling them, "Hey, that grass is green and that sky is blue," and they're going to say, "Nope, that grass is blue and that sky is green." And even though, whatever, are you colorblind? No, I'm just arguing with you because they want to argue. And some people are just, as my daddy used to say, some people are just contrary. And my grandma used to say, "Baby, if somebody's digging for a booger long enough, they gonna find one."
I've spent, Robbie and Doc can firsthand tell you, I have spent way more time in the woods than your average researcher. I'm out every chance I get. And now that my health is improving again, I'm going to get right back out there. I'm going to be dragging Noah to some crazy places this week. We're going down by Stockton Lake and going to do some filming and do some tracking. May have to get Robbie on video and show him the tracks, but because his tracking skills are better than mine. But I have spent an enormous amount of time out in the field researching stuff like this, and I have never experienced a single example of what people refer to as the woo. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm not saying that people that have had that experience are making it up, but I have had a lot of close-up encounters, and I've experienced none of that.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I think if they were going to mind speak and tell somebody to back off, it would probably been me, because I was out there well armed and with a group.
Or me, who was charging off after him.
He was flat out going after him.
Which way did he go, George? Which way did he go?
No, don't after him again.
I mean, and we're not talking about just going to the local park and getting out and looking in the tree line. Robbie and Noah and I and Wyatt Estes, who's in the chat tonight, and my old Lieutenant Jenkins and Alfredo Estrella and Steve Morotis, we had to take a boat into an area that had been cut off. We had to go in late at night to get into this area. So we're not talking about going into places that anybody can just drive up to, get out and take a look. We're talking about going places that are well off the beaten path and out in the middle of nowhere. And there are tons of them here in Missouri.
Well, that's needed more too there, DA. I mean, people go out into their backyard or into cul-de-sacs and say, oh, there's a Bigfoot talking to me. Do you see him? And that's not research. When you're going out to your driveway and saying there's a Bigfoot there, that's making a mockery of research. That's not actual research.
And I'm not knocking people whose only experience is what they've seen online, what they've read in books. I'm not knocking that at all, but it does not replace boots on the ground in the woods. It does not.
Right, correct.
And while I'm kind of on this tangent, folks, when we're talking about encounters, when we're talking about places we've gone and we've shown pictures of a lot of the places we've gone, we're not one of those channels that gets their stories from Reddit. And I'll just leave that there.
Try not to laugh.
I'm not naming any names, but y'all know who you are. It depends. Depends on where we're going. Sometimes we pack heavy, sometimes we don't. But at the very least, it's usually a collection of handguns and at least a couple of long guns. But it changes depending on where we're going and what we're expecting to find.
And that's not to hunt anything. That's just
it's self-defense.
That's for protection only, man. That's it.
So to kind of bring us back on topic, though, I do always find it interesting how the Rougarou was used as something to strike fear into everybody. And I think it's really interesting to look at how like things like werewolves and even Bigfoot, they're using stories like that to strike fear in us as a kid, and, there's got to be something to that, right? I mean, that fear stems from something.
I didn't grow up in Cajun country, but I grew up here, and my grandma and my aunts and uncles saying, "You better stay out of them woods at night, or the boogers are going to get you."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
And that's it's kind of the same thing, but there are things that are told to you as a kid to try to make you behave, but unfortunately, in my case, all it made me do was want to see them.
Yeah, same here. I mean, that's what I was telling you about my dad, is how my dad used to tell me stories about the Rougarou when I was a kid. I'm pretty sure if he were alive now, he'd be looking at me going, so you go out in the woods looking for them? You really are the disappointment of the family, aren't you? But, I mean, I grew up with that stuff. And, yeah, it did scare me to the degree. I'm not going to lie. There was many nights that a young Ryan would be looking out his window at night going, is there a Rougarou out there? Is there a Bigfoot out there? So,
I lived in New Mexico for a number of years as a kid. And I remember hearing, some of the Hispanic kids telling stories about what they called the bruja, which is this witch. And that terrified the crap out of me as a kid. But I would go to my window at night and pull that curtain back and look and see if I could see somebody out there. Because I always wanted to know. My curiosity. My curiosity, it was like the joke, curiosity killed the cat. That's probably what's gonna happen to me. I'm gonna get too curious about something, and it's gonna get me. But
absolutely,
I have never wanted to be the second one through the door. Ask anybody that was on the riot team with me. I always wanted to be point man going through the door, and that's just my mentality. I don't want to be the second one charging in. I want to be right up front.
There you go. Okay.
And like Robbie can tell you, when we went into Combs Ferry, I was the first set of boots on the ground, and I wanted to be the last ones that left. I was the first group on the ground, and I was the last group out.
There you go.
And I know we didn't intend for this to be the session that it's been tonight, but
sorry.
But the thing is, DA, and you know this, Doc, you know this, Ryan, you know this. You said it, DA. It's like, sometimes you feel like you're getting beat over the head for having your own opinion sometimes. Mm-hmm. If you don't have the popular opinion, everybody wants to argue with you, everybody wants to browbeat you, and everybody wants to tell you how stupid you are for, not believing in all this other stuff. Well, it's bad enough that we get raked over the coals by normal society for believing in this. I mean, you know, if any of you know how it feels to go outside of your police department and have Bigfoot magnet stickers all over your patrol car from goofballs that you work with who say they believe in ghosts but don't believe in Bigfoot, then, you know, talk to me about being able to make fun of us and make for our things, because I've had to deal with that for 40 years.
Man, that's rough, man. That's harsh.
Someone mentioned earlier about a third possibility about them being created by the government. Considering how far back stories of Dogman and Bigfoot go, since long before we ever had the capacity for genetic manipulation, I think these things were already there. Now,
Yes.
that's not to say our government has not tried to weaponize animals in the past. With World War II, they tried to weaponize dolphins. Hell, they put incendiary bombs on bats and released them over Japan because they knew when they nested on these houses that are made of paper and that little incendiary goes off, it would burn the houses down. The military and our government has tried to weaponize pretty much anything they can weaponize, and Dogman and Bigfoot would not be unheard of for them to do it with them as well.
Mm-hmm. It'd be very expensive, though, don't you think? I mean, that's a lot of time to invest and a lot of scientists to put to work just to use them as weapons.
Maybe. I mean, not unless they, let's say, for example, with Dogman, if they were able to get a hold of the genetic material and clone it, which we know they've been cloning sheep when was that sheep clone back in the 70s or 80s? So we know they can successfully clone things. Barbara Streisand's had the same dog for like the last 30 years because she keeps having the same dog cloned again. On a weird Hollywood, but that's true. The government can clone things, and if they could clone one and raise it and program it from birth, they would have a dangerous weapon. And they certainly have the patience and the time to do it. I mean, look at some of the stuff they've done to humans. In World War II, Stalin tried to make an army of superhumans by breeding human women with chimpanzees. Didn't work, but doesn't mean they didn't try.
Yeah, they got syphilis. That's all they got out of that.
But those are just the ones we know about.
Yeah.
What happened that we don't know about? What did Hitler do that nobody has ever even heard about?
Yeah, what did Joseph Mengele ultimately do?
Tad, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying money would stop our government, Tad. What I'm saying is that's an awful lot of money to invest into each and every one that they created, only to have them get killed off. That's a very big write-off to create these things, but all the time, effort, money, only to set them off and let them die. That's all I'm saying.
If you look at defense spending, the United States is #1 in the world on defense spending, where we outmatch the next 6 on the list combined.
Mm-hmm.
They've got the money to throw at it.
True. True.
Stephen Bishop's right. History is always written by the victors. But going back to the Rougarou thing, again, I believe that there is definitely an element to it, especially from the belief of that this thing is supernatural in origin. But we can't rule out the possibility that it might just be an attempt to explain Dogman. And that's my theory on it. I think these things were already there, and this was just a very uneducated, and I'm not saying stupid, but uneducated way to try to explain what these things were.
Mm-hmm. So let me throw at you, though. Oh, go ahead, Robbie.
I was just going to say that I think that's very, and that's where I was actually going in the very first one when we got off on the other tangent. I was going with how they that was what I believe that how they were pronouncing Rougarou, because I believe that they saw that and tried to mix it with what they had learned from their French heritage, and it just came out as Rougarou instead of Rougarou, and it was just that's where I was going with that. Was I agree with what you just said, DA, basically.
And a lot of these legends started out as just being one thing, but as they came into contact with other civilizations, they grew. That doesn't necessarily mean that they were supernatural even to begin with, but as more cultures tried to explain it, they brought in their own supernatural views, and that's the point I'm just trying to make. We
Okay.
don't know that the whole spiritualism or supernaturalism behind it isn't just an attempt to explain something they didn't understand.
Okay. So, well, before I ask my question, hey Bryce, what's up, dude? So there's a theory, and I'm sure all of you guys have seen it around the cryptid field, that you can tell werewolves and Dogman apart because werewolves have the human-like face and the human-like legs, and they don't have the tail, whereas Dogman does. Do you think the Rougarou is behind that, or do you think that's just a BS thing created by some dude who's writing creepypastas?
The only time I've ever seen a werewolf with a human face is in Hollywood.
Lon Chaney.
Yeah, the rest, that's the old Wolfman movies.
Yep.
But every encounter I've ever talked to people about, they all described a wolf-like face. I have never taken an encounter story where they described it as being a wolf-like person face.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying it's not out there, but it's not been my experience. Every person I've ever talked to that said they had a Dogman encounter described it as being canine-like or wolf-like.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just asked because I mean that's something that a lot of people will argue with when you're out in the Facebook forums or whatever. If you say it looked this way, they're like, "Oh, then it's a werewolf." If it has a shorter snout and it has the human-like legs, it's not a Dogman; it's a werewolf. And I don't know where that whole thing came from. I have my ideas where it came from, and I'm not going to mention any names, but I know that's a theory people throw around.
It's like we said, the term Dogman is so relatively new when you talk about these things. Anyway, the term werewolf is way older and way more prevalent than Dogman. So how can you say, oh, it's this, because this word didn't exist till like 87?
Right.
Look how old the word cynocephaly is.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's my argument to that is, okay, the term Dogman it only came around in 87. So how can you say that's something that they were seeing back in the 1700s? Oh, that was a Dogman. Well, they didn't even know what the hell a Dogman was back then.
Yeah.
Yep. That word was
and
never in the lexicon.
Funny thing is, though, is when he made the song about the Dogman, that was done to be a prank. That was all done to kind of poke fun at things, and
it's the same
people
way.
Just don't acknowledge it.
Bigfoot was Bigfoot terrorizing.
Yeah, that phrase was coined in 1957,
and it stuck. Same thing with the Dogman, Michigan Dogman, and it stuck.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as it was not a thing back then. So I think people who just throw that in there and say that, I think they're proving what we talk about is there's people out there who want their opinions to have weight to their opinions, and if nobody agrees to it, then they have their
Ryan, it was like that post you made on Facebook where you were asking about ways to stop them, and you said in some versions a slap on the head would back one down. Well, that all may be well and good, but I'm still taking a firearm.
Well, of course. I mean, I wouldn't expect you not to, but I just think that a lot of people replace the old ways, which I do believe that there's truth in the old ways. I think when someone like William tells you this is how you stop them, I think that's how you would stop them. But I don't blame you for taking firearms, man. I wouldn't say go out there without a gun. I would never tell you to do that.
And I don't discount the old lore on them. I just, again, when you've got a people that can't scientifically explain something, they tend to ascribe metaphysical or mystical abilities to it.
Yes.
That doesn't necessarily mean it truly has those abilities.
I agree.
And I won't discount those. I mean, I will take those under advisement. Like some of the lore on both Dogman and Bigfoot. There's conflicting lore. There are some native tribes that said Bigfoot was like a big brother that they traded with it, and there are others who are like these things are eating folks. So we've got different conflicting lore coming from different groups of indigenous people.
Right.
So I'm going to err on the side of the caution and take something that's going to put a rather large hole in something, rather than rely on a pat on the head or hitting it with a certain tree branch.
Right. And there, there's room to wiggle. I think with Bigfoot and Dogman, there's a lot of wiggle room, but there's certain entities that, there's no wiggle room at all. Case in point, Wendigo and the Yanagoshi. I mean, when they say this is how you stop them, I'm going to follow their ways of stopping them.
But that's proving our point. That's completely and totally your right and your privilege to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wouldn't discount that. I mean, not at all, especially when it comes to Skinwalker or Wendigo lore. I wouldn't discount that at all.
Right.
But at the same time, I think a dragon's breath round out of a shotgun is going to deter the hell out of just about anything.
Sure. I'm sure it would.
I would agree. Nothing likes getting set on fire.
That's true.
We're at the top of the hour. We're going to do one commercial break tonight, and that's it. We'll just do that right now. Robbie, how about you tell us a little bit about the good folks at Scallywag Tactical?
Sure thing. Let's go with the board next tonight. I haven't brought that out in a while.
It's been a minute.
The good folks at Scallywag Tactical, one of our medically owned, veteran-owned affiliates. I was looking at Doc and said medical. Sorry, Doc. Good folks at Scallywag Tactical make some of the best blades that you can get. They are now partnered with Gray's Customs.
And
the other one is
Tour Industries.
Tour Industries. So there's big things on the horizons, boys. So, and girls. Sorry, Misty. Go check them out. Look up. I mean, there's a lot of different stuff coming that's in the pipes. We were looking at that the other day, and there's some really cool blades coming out. And they've got a Facebook group that is showing some really cool stuff. So
yeah, the new designs are looking amazing.
Yeah, go check them out. Tell them we sent you. Use code DARoberts10 at checkout, and get yourself a good deal on the blade. And that's all I got to say about that. And I don't remember where I put.
And there go the movie references again.
Yeah, well, Ryan, it is what it is.
That's inevitable.
It is. It is.
You get me and Doc together, and we don't do a movie reference. One of us is sick, or both of us.
This is true.
Oh, we have the not so perfect Bigfoot podcast here. Good to see you.
Joanne Oser has a good comment here. She goes, I just have a hunch that Dogman is a type of werewolf. These evil, wicked, demonic entities fear the holy only name of Jesus Christ more than we will ever fear them. They can't survive his name. And again, that's, that is, one theory. We don't know if that's true or not. The one I saw in LBL ran from me, and the praying was the farthest thing from my mind. But the night, a few nights before, when I was alone in Demumbers Bay, I don't think there was any backing those things down. I think if I'd have stopped and tried to pray, I wouldn't have made it back to my van. So, maybe, I don't know. I don't have that answer. I've never tried it. Maybe next time we go down to Joe Bald, maybe we might try that. But again, I do believe, folks, but I put a lot more faith in my ability to defend myself than I do in anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
As the saying goes, the Lord helps those who help themselves. Well, I'm certainly going to help myself.
Can I chime in on that? What if maybe what if these things aren't really evil? I mean, being the Godzilla fan that I am, okay, I think there's a couple lines in Godzilla 1985 that really stop and make you think. Raymond Burr at the end of Godzilla 1985 is giving this monologue where he's stating that nature has a way sometimes of reminding man just how small he really is. Okay, with my belief, nature and God hand in hand. Okay, maybe God did create these things to show, hey, you humans aren't in charge of everything. You're not the apex predator all the time. There are things out there. So if they're God's creation, why would the name of Jesus destroy them? Maybe it makes them back off, but it doesn't take away their life. It makes them just go away.
Flyby Stu, thank you for the super chat. Casey Calloway says, DA, which is older, the cynocephali or Anubis? I'm Of that, I'd probably have to guess Anubis because ancient Egypt goes back far farther than either the Roman or the Greek empires.
Mhm.
But I would have to say Anubis is probably the older of the stories.
But there's a problem with the Anubis thing, though, DA, and a lot of people don't know this. Originally, Anubis wasn't depicted as a human with a jackal's head. Originally, he was depicted as a jackal, a golden wolf, on all fours, laying down
And
like
his
a normal
brother
dog.
Wepelwet is a wolf.
Right. So when people say Anubis was the beginning of the Dogman, it's like, well, no, because he was originally just a normal golden wolf, a jackal. He wasn't bipedal. He wasn't humanoid. Didn't have any human features.
Curtis Murray says, in ancient times, weren't we all covered with hair? Could it be that these are just ancient beings who did not evolve like us? Exactly. That's kind of what I've been saying, that they've been here all along. And I think they're largely subterranean, which is why we don't see them any more than we do.
Mm-hmm. That was a very scientific approach there, too. I'm impressed.
Definitely. Bryce Edwards says, DA, can you tell the story of your encounter? It was brief. It was only 15 to 20 seconds. I was in the northern part of LBL with Nick Valente. And I got there before him. I'd been there for a couple of days before he got there. And what we were doing is we were exploring the back roads of LBL, looking for primitive campsites. And in doing so, we were hoping to find either one that had been abandoned or one that was occupied where we could ask them about stuff. But there weren't a whole lot of people camping that when we were there. I was hoping to find clear areas where we could find tracks because there were still tons of leaf litter. But we just left the Mumbers Bay and they're heading back toward the trace. And there's a concrete bridge over a little inlet. And we crossed over that bridge. There was one dude fishing on the bridge, but we didn't stop and talk to him. He just, he was just parked nearby and was fishing from the bridge. We made it about another 100 yards, maybe a little more from that bridge. And we were driving 2 or 3 miles an hour, going really slow. And Nick was looking out the left side of the vehicle, the driver's side, and I was looking out the passenger side. And I looked and I saw something, but it didn't really click what I saw. Because it stood completely still. But as we were moving by slowly, it was turning its head, watching us go. And when the head moved, I zeroed in on it instantly. And I've said before, every deer I've ever shot deer hunting, I only saw it because it moved. The only reason I saw that thing is because it moved. And I'm starting immediately smacking Nick in the shoulder, trying to get him to stop. And he stopped and turned, but I saw it for far longer than he did. And it was standing about 20, 30 yards off the road, maybe, somewhere between 20 and 30 yards off the road. And it had its right hand against a tree trunk, and it was just standing there. It was completely black. It had a head like a wolf or a German Shepherd, something like that. But the snout was much blunter, more like a Mastiff or a Rottweiler. It was not a long beak or pointed snout like a German Shepherd has. It was shorter and blunter. It was completely black, and it was just standing there. Once it realized we saw it, it kind of just did this oh shit moment, and it turned and it bounded away. It didn't run straight. It kind of sprang to the side, sprang to the other side, sprang to the other side, and in 3 bounds went down a ravine. And Nick threw the car in park, and we jumped out and went running over there, which in all reality probably wasn't the smartest thing we could do. But we went running over there, and the leaf litter was extremely thick, and we could hear that thing still beating through the bushes, heading off into the woods, and we knew there was no chance we were going to catch it. So I went back over to the area, hoping to find tracks, but again, the leaf litter was so thick, no tracks. But you could see in the impressions in the leaves where he had ran. So I went right up to the tree where it had been standing, and I placed my hand about where I estimated its hand was. And it was uncomfortably above my head. Like if I was going to lean against a tree, I'd probably put my hand on it about shoulder level. And that's what it looked like it had done. So based on where I had to put my hand and the way it was leaning, it was definitely taller than me, but not massively so. It was probably between 6.5 and 7 feet tall, maybe a touch bigger, but not much. completely black. Didn't see any distinguishing features other than the dark fur and the blunter snout. But it moved incredibly fast, and it was one of those. As soon as it realized it had been seen, it just took off. I didn't feel threatened by it. I know a lot of people describe their Dogman encounter as it being hellish or demonic. I didn't feel any of that. The only thing I really kind of got from the encounter was it panicked when it realized we could see it. And then it was gone, and we could hear it still, heading off through the trees. And later, I found out from other sources that we were within just a few hundred yards of where the original LBL story with the family of 4 supposedly being killed there. We were just within a few hundred yards of where that happened.
Dang.
We had another super chat from Bo Booker. I wanted to put that up and say thank you, man. Hey, thanks for becoming a member. Man, I missed a bunch of comments. Holy crap. Flyby Stu, was that a second one there? That is awesome, man. Thank you. Well, thanks, man. It may have been the original one. I'm still way up on the encounters. There was a super chat from Bo. So yeah, I think I was just way up there still. All right. I may miss some. I'm just gonna scroll to the bottom and start over. Misty Haynes says, "Hey, people can say a lot of things about us, but never that we're fake. What y'all see is 1,000% us being us. Same here. I tell people, the guy you see on here is the same guy you'd run into at Walmart. I'm not putting on airs for anybody. I am who I am."
Yep.
Fact.
This show did not take the direction I anticipated tonight. I did not anticipate going off on a tangent. A rant anyway. I did not plan on that.
It was needed. So.
Yeah, but I probably could have kept my cool a little better.
I think you did fine.
I'm not calling anybody out by name. I will never do that. We're not about the drama here. But when I talk about, certain things, if the boot fits, wear it, I suppose.
Yep. 100% DA.
Stephen Bishop says, do y'all think the Rougarou could be more... I just lost it. It jumped up. Could be more of a mental mindset rather than physical? That's an interesting one.
That's a good question. Well, I mean, lycanthropy was an actual disease that affected people's minds and bodies way back in the day. Rougarou could fall into that same category.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Wendigo. Look at that dude that was part of the Ojibwa tribe.
Mm-hmm. Swift runner.
Well, in more recent times, the guy that was on that bus in Canada that attacked and killed the guy on the bus and was eating him. Yep. They referred to that as Wendigo psychosis, but there's still no explanation on what happened and why he did it. I mean, they put him in a mental institution and he's out now, but that doesn't change the fact that he's just casually sitting on a bus and went, that guy looks like he'd be pretty tasty.
Yep, exactly. Northwoods. You see his comment?
The shoe fits the hoof. But my whole point is we just don't know.
No.
And I think we're, until we can confirm that we can confirm to everybody and can prove it to the world that these things even exist. It'd be like, I don't know. We know people exist, and we know genetic mutation is a thing.
Right.
People have different colored eyes. There are people that are. Well, look at in the last, 30 or so years, the average height of people have gone up. Look at NBA stars; they just keep getting taller, and that is a mutation. but that doesn't mean the X-Men are out there.
I would hope not. I don't want to think Sabretooth is out there somewhere. No, thank you, good sir.
I will pass on that.
Me too. Hard pass.
Mm-hmm.
Billy Mitchum says, did that guy on the bus kill his family first and eat them? I don't remember. The only
No.
one thing I remember for sure was he killed the guy on the bus, and when they finally apprehended him, he had Ziploc bags full of chunks of that guy's flesh in his pocket.
No, he didn't. That's why his case was so awkward, because he showed no signs of being a psychopath or being a cannibal or being a murderer. So when he did this, it was really one of those like, whoa kind of things.
Yeah, he wasn't even Native American. If I remember correctly, he was Asian.
Yep.
Oh, we lost Doc.
Uh-oh. I think that question might have been he was confusing Swift Runner with the guy on the bus.
Yeah, because Swift Runner did eat his family.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he sure did. And he bragged about it too.
Mm-hmm. Ricardo says, so silver bullets don't work on a werewolf or dogman. A silver bullet will kill me. I mean, it's hard to say if it was the silver that killed it or the fact that you put a bullet in its heart.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of folklore because silver represents purity. Like even with the Wendigo, they talk about cutting its heart out with a silver knife. So there's a lot to be said about the purity of silver, but just because it can die from a silver bullet to the heart doesn't mean it took a silver bullet to do it. That's just what they used.
True.
I mean, if I unloaded a bunch of hollow points into the thing and it kept coming, but one silver bullet put it down, I'm probably going to buy into the silver bullet thing. But if you put enough bullets into most things, you're going to bring it down.
Yep. Especially if you know where to hit.
Dang right. And that was another thing we were discussing. I wouldn't use a small caliber bullet. I wouldn't use the 22 to hunt an elk.
No.
And if these things are as big and as powerful as a lot of the stories suggest, 10, 12 feet tall, we lost Robbie too.
Uh-oh, we're losing everybody. Uh-oh. You want to take a wager on who's next? Me or you, DA? Who's going to be dropped next?
I'm going to text him real quick and see what's up. There's Robbie. Yeah, I can hear you. Did we lose your audio?
Yeah, I lost my audio. I was trying to tell you, Doc said he had to restart his router and everything. And I was like,
okay.
Yeah, Doc had to restart his router. I said, crap. And I was trying to do like that I had to get out. So.
Oh, okay. So now we know what was going on. Robbie lost audio and Doc had to reset his router. So hopefully he'll be back in a minute.
Stephen Bishop has a really good question.
What's the question?
It's just scrolled up.
Let me find it. It says, I'll just put it up. It says, what's y'all's view on the lore behind werewolves only or prioritizing the heart on a victim? Well, there's a lot of mysticism around gaining the power of something if you eat its heart.
Yep.
But honestly, I think the only time I can remember hearing the eating of the heart was in Supernatural. I don't remember hearing
American Werewolf in Paris. They said that same thing.
Oh, okay.
Yep,
but I don't think that's part of the original werewolf lore, if I recall.
That was the first place I'd ever heard that part of how you can,
because in the original Romanian myth, the story of the Varkalak, it would eat the flesh, but it didn't say anything about the heart that I recall.
Right. Well, like you said, I mean, there's a lot of mysticism around that because, some cultures believe that when you eat the heart, you take every essence of that person. And they also believe that if you eat the heart, it extends your own lifespan. So, like, whatever life you take, you add on a lot of years to your own.
True. I can't speak to the veracity of any of that, but I mean, I don't know, but I would imagine they probably consumed a lot of other things too. I know some people have told stories about Bigfoot taking deer, and the only thing they ate was the liver. If you eat animal liver, it does a lot of health benefits for people
Oh
and
yeah.
provides a lot of calories. So it makes perfect sense. Standing Stone says, "Where are these Wendigo located?" It, Brian, you're more up on the Wendigo lore than I am, but they're
Well,
primarily cold region stuff.
yeah. I mean, they're obviously Canada. That's where it originated from, but it's been seen in Minnesota, Maine. There's some reports like in New England. But I think the thing that is the Wendigo is kind of confined to the Canada regions. It doesn't like to go too far away from that.
Well, a lot of the Algonquin territories.
Yeah. I feel it has to follow that particular tribe or the sect of tribes, the Algonquin, the Cree, and Ojibwe.
Don Donaldson said Gray Eagle ate the heart of a werewolf. Yeah, that's where I took that from. That he was doing it to gain its power. But again, my books are works of fiction, so I do take as a writer, I have to take liberties with the lore. So. Bowers is near ice fishing shacks.
The wheels.
Misty says, DA, Robbie, Ryan, we're going to do a show on necromancy if y'all want to chime in on a Sunday night.
Yeah, I'll stop by.
Sounds interesting.
That sounds very fun. I'm not an expert on necromancy, but I'd love to learn about it. Learn something new.
I think it was E.D. Testerman said something about the 30 pieces of silver possibly being linked to the why silver was chosen. I don't know if it's that, because a lot of cultures that weren't Christian in origin spoke highly of the purity of silver.
Oh yeah.
So civilizations that had no ties whatsoever to long before Christianity were talking about the purity of silver.
It was used to cure diseases like leeches were.
Yeah, look at some of the things that you can get rid of with what do they call that? The colloidal silver.
Yep. Just don't use too much of it. Your skin will turn blue.
You turn blue.
Mm-hmm.
I'll look like a giant
Yes,
Smurf.
Yeah, you beat me to it.
With my gray beard, I'd look like Papa Smurf.
I just envisioned that too.
Is it much farther, Papa Smurf? Yes, it is.
Jeff Yarrington says, "Hey y'all, I was just helping look for a deer that may have been snatched. I had that happen to me once. Got a deer kill taken.
That would be aggravating as heck.
Yeah, it was a good sized buck too.
I'd be mad. Ooh.
Well, I was, believe me.
Created some profanity words all your own, I bet, that day.
Yeah, I was speaking in tongues for sure. I can tell you that.
I would be too.
Casey Calloway, you're absolutely right. In this field, there are no experts, and we're just sharing the things we've learned along the way, and we could be 100% wrong. And I don't claim to be right. I just, I just don't understand how some people can claim that only their way is right, because they don't know any more than we do.
No. Kind of curious about what Ricardo said, though. Ricardo, so Thunderbirds being killed, who said that? Because in the indigenous tribes, Thunderbird is sacred. It's not something they would ever try to kill it. It battled the great serpent to stop chaos. So they don't speak of killing the Thunderbird.
Stephen Bishop says, "Have you all watched the Yeti Massacre documentary on Discovery Plus yet? If so, how do you feel about it?" I watched it. I thought they made some really compelling arguments. I really do. A very interesting documentary. If you haven't had a chance, definitely you should watch that. That's a good documentary.
I missed that one. I'll have to go back and watch that one.
You'd enjoy it. It talks a lot about the Dyatlov Pass incident.
Okay, that's what I figured. I don't think we'll ever have all the answers to that particular incident.
Oh no. Even today, the Russians won't let the bodies be exhumed to
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. It's going to be an eternal mystery, like Jack the Ripper. We're never going to have all the answers to him. We're never going to have the answers to that either.
Personally, I think Jack the Ripper was H.H. Holmes,
Yeah, I do too. Actually, that's
Very
America's
distinct
first
possibility.
serial killer.
I agree 100%.
It makes sense. I mean, look at what he did once he was back in America.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would definitely go along with that theory, man. That's legit. Will we ever know, though? Probably not.
Probably not for sure.
No.
Not unless somebody knew about it and their journal was found or something.
Right. Or find a
Or
written
they come across H.H. Holmes' own journal and he admits it.
Right. Which I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it seemed like Jack the Ripper liked to brag and gloat about it. So
It's entirely possible. It's somebody's attic. There's a journal that just sitting there collecting dust that might prove a lot of that.
he actually hated the nickname Jack the Ripper, too. He was not a fan of that nickname that they had given him.
Well, he fancied himself a doctor.
Yeah. He called himself Saucy Jack, though.
Looks like Doc's not going to be able to get the router kick started.
He's still waiting. He's texted me. He's still trying. He said, "Damn satellites."
Oh, he's got that kind of internet.
Damn it, Bobby! Get the satellite off your neck. You're scaring Ladybird.
Dang, I'll tell you what. Okay, gentlemen, I am going to have to jump down. I got a dog that's probably going to have to go outside here.
All right, man. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us.
Hey, it's my pleasure, man. I'm actually happy that we had these little rants of ours. It was very enlightening. I think it was something that needed to happen.
Well, we'll see. I may catch some flack from it. I'm sure I'm going to get some hate mail from a couple people.
You know what? If you get hate mail, I got your back, DA. Simple as that, buddy.
Appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Not a problem. All right. You have a great night, DA. Robbie, you too, good sir.
See you
Everybody in chat, I'll see you around next time.
Be safe.
Take it easy, guys.
So, Robbie, that night you and I were in LBL, not LBL. That night you and I were in Joe Bald. I firmly believe that was a Dogman.
Mm-hmm.
And the way it behaved was totally different than the behavior of what we ran into in Combs Ferry.
100%. I totally agree with that. We've even talked about that and said it was a completely, totally different feeling. Same feeling. Yep, the same feeling that we had in Joe Ball is the feeling that I had in Georgia with me and Jessica that night, the second time, and that I had in the LBL. And that's only 3 times that I've ever felt like that, and I felt like that I was being hunted all 3 times.
Well, I definitely felt like we were being hunted while we were in LBL. I mean, that's one of the rare times when I actually cleared leather on my gun. Well, hell, I think all of us cleared leather that night.
Yeah, we did.
Sorry, I was answering a question.
Yeah, me too.
But I know we kind of took a controversial turn here, but
Sorry.
I ain't worried about it. I don't want to rule out the possibility that the Rougarou is not just a misidentified Dogman. Yeah, I know there's a lot of lore about it. There's a lot of supernatural belief about it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's the case. I mean, look at the example I used about the Valkyries. That was the lore on what the Northern Lights were, but we know that ain't true now.
Well, I mean, you've got, you said it, any science that cannot be sufficiently explained is going to appear as magic.
Right.
And So anytime that you see something that you can't understand or you can't explain, you know, the human mind is gonna a lot of times is gonna automatically revert to, ooh, it's magic, you know, when there's probably an explanation for that. And that's what we're saying. We're not saying that it's not a possibility or that it's an impossibility. We're just saying that you have to look at all aspects first before you can say, okay, that it is it. Once you rule out all the, I think, what was it? In Star Trek, one of the movies, when Mr. Spock looked at Dr. McCoy and said, once you've ruled out all the logical and the illogical is the only thing left, and that becomes the logical answer. But you have to rule out the logical answers before you can say it's this illogical answer. And that's all we're saying.
Sentinel's in the house.
Sentinel.
What's up, brother?
Oh, I dang near lost it when you sent me the second picture. He sent me a, and that's not a mating call. You'll know which one I'm talking about, Sentinel. That
I
was
know.
I got that. And I dang near dropped my phone. I was laughing so hard. But you know, I'm just that person. If I haven't experienced this, I can't sit there and say, "Oh, well, it has to be that." And you and I have had a lot of the same type encounters. We've had them together, and I've not seen anything that's shown me anything other than a flesh and blood animal. Now, did I see orbs out in the LBL? Yeah, but they weren't attached to the creature. But I can't explain them. But the encounters that I had with the creature that night still acted like a complete and total flesh and blood animal.
Right.
So,
it left tracks. It built a hunting blind. If it was purely supernatural, it wouldn't have needed any of those. Wouldn't needed a hunting blind. It wouldn't have built it where it couldn't be seen on a game trail. It wouldn't have left tracks. So, again, I know this is just my opinion. I'm going to go with physical creature, with a flesh and blood creature until something proves it otherwise.
yeah, but it's like I said, and I'm not saying anybody else has to subscribe to the same theory and process we do. I'm just saying this is what DA and I. This is how we look at it, and from our standpoint, you can't go from point A to point Z without hitting all the points in between. If that's your belief that you go from point A to point Z and don't check those other, then to each his own.
Just one of the things that just drives me buggy is when we present logical, concise arguments and they go, nope, that can't be it. Like backtracking or the clear hair follicles or adaptive camouflage. We present those as, and if those of you who remember seeing that video of the doll sheep, that video, when you look at it, just looks like there's a handful of sheep in there until that guy misses with that shot. And it turns out there's like 30 of them in that video, and you don't see them until they move. It's just natural adaptive camouflage. And I think that's what we're dealing with here in the case as well. But again, that is just my opinion, but it makes more sense to me than ascribing an ability to it that no other animal in the animal kingdom has. Robert Miller says, I saw the meme and knew they were DA and Robbie Worthy. Yeah, that was pretty damn funny.
They were.
I like that. ED Testament says you both got my attention about the backtracking. I've never thought of that point of view before. Backtracking happens all the time in the animal kingdom. You ever hunted rabbits and a rabbit takes off? The advice I got from when I was young was just wait. It'll come back. It'll circle back on its tracks, and they do. We do hear stories of people hunting bears all the time, that the bear backtracked on their own tracks and came up behind the hunter. This is not an isolated incident. There are examples all over the place in nature of animals backtracking on their own tracks. Um, we would tell people talk about, well, this Bigfoot track disappeared in the middle of a field and there was nothing around. So they had to have been, walked through a portal or they were beamed up or whatever. Yet Robbie has made a clear argument on how the tracks form differently when they walk back on their own prints. We know it happens. Our special forces are taught to do it. So if our guys can learn to do it, something that's adapted to its environment that doesn't want to be found, damn right it would know how to do it. And all it's got to do is backtrack on its tracks far enough where it can jump out on a low-hanging branch or onto a rock, and then you've got the people that say the tracks just disappeared. There's a big difference between somebody that is following tracks because I see a track there, I see a track there, and a trained tracker. Robbie is a trained tracker. I thought I was pretty good at following tracks from growing up deer hunting. I got nothing on Robbie. I mean, in 15 minutes with Robbie out in the woods, I learned more than I probably learned in a lifetime of trying to track an animal. So there's far more to tracking than just finding and identifying the tracks.
Which that's a good segue for us to mention what we talked about earlier, that we need to about the conference and talking about the tracking.
Go right ahead, man.
So y'all have heard me and DA talking about us. We're going to the conference in October 11th and 12th, I think. Right, DA? We'll be up there on the 10th, but the conference is actually the 11th and 12th, Friday and Saturday. I'm going to be teaching a tracking class, and I think DA is probably going to be helping me out with that some. He's going to be speaking. But if you want to get your DA is probably going to put, or somebody's going to put the link to the conference up there
right now.
Go to the website, click on classes or speakers or whatever, and then go to the classes link. Matter of fact, let me pull up exactly what she said to do, so I'm telling you exactly. All right. When DA puts the web address up, which this one right there, it just popped up. Click on guest speakers and then click on tickets, and you can go ahead and buy your tickets in advance. And you can buy you can get I think the last time I looked on it, there was a bundle available where you could get like all the hands-on classes and get your general admission tickets. So if y'all want to come hang out with me and DA, come to the class, learn some tracking, some things like that, go to the BigfootOhioFestival.com or BigfootFestivalOH.com. Go to it, and probably going to find us a nice barbecue place that Thursday night when we're going to, if there's not a meet and greet, which I haven't heard that there's going to be. Of you, DA?
No, I haven't heard anything about them.
So DA, and hopefully if Doc gets down there, he's going to try to get down there, but hopefully at the very least, me and DA are going to try to find us a nice barbecue spot to maybe have our own little meet and greet. So if y'all are in the area, you want to come say hey, eat some barbecue. If you want to come to the class, it's probably, from what it sounds, it's going to be packed. There's going to be vendors. There's going to be all kinds of stuff going on. So come check it out. Go ahead and get your tickets ahead of time. Come see me and DA, learn how to track, hear DA talk about the books, and buy some books, buy some Lone Wolf custom merchandise, things like that. We'll have a good time.
I just looked it up. Cave Hours. That is not the same conference. I didn't see anything on the website about the confessionals being there. There was a question somebody posted I wanted to get back to. I have lost the question.
Sentinel said barbecue sounds like the best idea yet.
Hell yeah.
It's Wabbit season again.
Yeah. Mary Cole had a question for you, Robbie. She said
I
you
already
mentioned
I answered it.
You already answered it. Okay.
Yeah, I saw it.
I completely lost the question I was gonna. Oh, there it is. David Neal says, "Do you think the Rougarou might be semi-aquatic, living in the swamps? If you're living in the swamp, you got to be semi-aquatic. I would say they definitely use the swamps to avoid detection for travel and to make it impossible to track them. So even if it's a physical creature at all, it's using the swamps to avoid detection.
Well, they even talk about that in Legend of Boggy Creek.
Mhm.
That's what they talk about. It always finds or follows the waterways, and I mean, like you said, you can't live in the swamp and not be even even if you're a human, you gotta know how to run the bayous to live in the swamp.
In
And
your P row,
yeah, you pirogue and them house bolts, which using the term house very loosely on most of them,
shacks, floating shacks.
floating shacks. But you know what? That is honestly, that's not a bad way to live, in my opinion.
Yeah, certainly could be worse. Hey, Wyatt. I don't think Doc's gonna make it back in.
Yeah, I think the damn satellites done got a hold of him.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Casey Calloway says the Honey Island swamp tracks were webbed. Yeah, that would seem to indicate that it certainly, moves in water a lot. That it would have that adaptation. But the Honey Island swamp tracks were also three-toed, which some of the tracks found in Falk, Arkansas, were three-toed,
Yeah,
and
the
the
ones in the bean
Gugway is
field.
said to be three-toed.
That one set of tracks in the bean field and Falk were three-toed. That's the only set of or the only time there was three-toed tracks there. So that just makes me wonder if it was something that one of them just kind of wandered in.
Yeah, because I would imagine, like any other large predator, they probably don't brook another one in their territory.
Yeah.
Ricardo says, heard there's a fusion of Bigfoot and Dogman called the Guya. That's a new one on me. I haven't heard of that one. I'm not saying it's not out there. I've never heard of it.
I never heard of that one either.
Greg House says three-toed tracks found within 15 miles of his home there in Alabama. Yeah, I would think if you're finding a track down that way, it's probably a Gugway.
Greg, put your shoes on. Quit walking around barefoot.
David Neal says, "Man, could you imagine a fight between a Rougarou and a big bull gator?" Yeah, I would definitely say that would be something. There's been talk of Bigfoot killing gators, so yeah, it'd be a hell of a fight.
Yep. And
I'd
I'm
say
sure
probably, if it would depend on the size of the gator, it'd depend on who got in the first shot,
and depending on where it started. If it's in the water, even as bad as Bigfoot is, if it's a big bull gator and it's in the water, I don't know how, if a gator gets a good hold on a Bigfoot, I don't know how that's dangerous. I'm not saying a Bigfoot couldn't, but I would, if it's in the water and it's a big bull gator, I would put my money on the gator.
Yeah, especially in the water. If it gets a hold even that bite, I'd say you're probably done. Even if it's, unless it is a particularly big Bigfoot or a Dogman, be able to power out of it. But
yeah, and
generally, once a gator gets a hold of you, it's over.
And if it's in deep water where the Bigfoot or the Dogman can't touch the bottom, I don't care how big they are. Yeah, Gators, it's game over in my opinion.
Steve Padden says, DA, with the boot heel of our state being more swampy, I wonder how many sightings there have been down there. There are a lot of sightings down around the boot heel. A lot of northern Arkansas. Um, so swampy areas, because those tend to be areas where people stay out of. Uh, I think that would be prime habitat for. There's plenty of food. There's plenty of shelter. There's plenty of places to hide. So I would say swampy the prime habitat for a cryptid, especially if it didn't want to be found, because well, to be honest, we really don't spend a whole lot of time in swamps. Granted, there are folks that do go out into the swamps, but by and large, that's just not something that normal folks do. K Bowers, them gators grab you. Shoot them, Robbie. Shoot them.
Shoot them, little bit. Shoot them.
Whew. Brother, I think we've kind of beaten this dead horse about as long as we can. Yeah. I was hoping I could make it back, but it don't look like he's going to make it.
I don't think he's going to. I think he done scared Lady Bird too much.
Yeah. He's got that propane-fired internet.
Yep. I sell propane and propane-fired internet accessories.
Well, folks, we're going to start winding things down. I appreciate you guys being here tonight. I know we didn't stay on the topic as much as we probably should have. And again, I apologize for losing my cool a little bit there, but I get really frustrated and tired of being browbeat because my personal opinions don't conform to the norms, and unfortunately, there's a lot of it out there where they, do you believe the way I do? Well, no. Well, then you're an idiot. I don't feel that way. If you got a different opinion, that's great. I mean, I don't know if you're right or I'm right or who's right. There are no experts in this field, and anybody that claims that they're an expert is lying to you. I will never claim to be an expert in anything to do with cryptozoology. All I'm sharing is what I've read, what I've learned, and what I've experienced. And believe it or not, my opinions have changed over the years. I don't believe they're set in stone. There's nothing I believe that's set in stone. Kind of like how we started putting forth the theory that a lot of the wood knocks were tongue pops. I'm not saying they all are, but I'm saying a good chunk of them likely are, especially with our theory that might be some form of echolocation for when they go deep. That's not something that I thought even 4 or 5 years ago. That's just something that we've, through discussion and through learning about other subjects, that's something we've come up with in the last couple of years. And as Robbie can tell you, or Ryan could if he was still here, there's some of the bigger channels that are now talking about tongue pops. So maybe we're onto something, or maybe we're not, but that's what I think. And it's because of us sharing ideas and bouncing ideas back and forth that I was even able to come up with the idea. And to me, it makes sense. It just makes sense. And that's generally my big sounding board for stuff like this. Does it make sense? And you got to ask yourself, folks, because there's a lot of stuff out there that makes zero sense. I mean, someone once told me that they were a member of 5 Bigfoot clans and spoke Bigfoot language, yet when asked if they had so much as a hair for evidence, no, they won't let me take anything like that. Well, if you're a member of the clan, how come you didn't get a selfie with one? I mean, so with fantastic claims comes a requirement for great proof. If you're going to make wild, absolutely off the wall claims like Bigfoot, a clan of Bigfoot has a frat party in my basement every night. If you're going to make a claim like that, you better be able to back it up, because there are those of us out there that put time in the field, have never seen anything like that, and I mean, again, not just because we haven't seen it doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but we share what we know. We share what we've seen. We take pictures of things we found. And I have yet to run across anything like a Bigfoot frat party or, a guy running around in a loincloth because he's a member of the Klan. It just, it's beyond my experience. Not saying it can't happen, but if you're going to make that kind of claim, yeah, you're going to have to expect me to be highly skeptical until you can show me something that proves your claims. And that's the problem is we've got far too many people that just make obnoxiously speculative claims and expect everybody to just accept it. And that's not how scientific study works. That is not how true research is done. I could say that, I saw Bigfoot and Dogman wearing party dresses, and they were dancing down by the creek to music that they were playing. They had crickets playing music, and one of them was picking a banjo. I sat and watched them for 3 hours, and people are going to wonder, well, how come you didn't take a single picture in that 3 hours you sat there watching them? So, if you're going to make a claim like that, you're going to have to be able to back it up, because I am not going to take fantastical claims like that at face value. I'm just not. That's not to say that that strange things don't happen that can't be explained, and I don't have an explanation for that. However, for us to immediately assume it is something beyond this world is a disservice to the scientific method, because we need to prove these things exist and document what they are before we can start saying that Mr. Scott beams them up, or they have a personal cloaking device the Klingons gave them, or they're hopping through dimensional portals. Just because you lost track of them doesn't mean they disappeared. They went through a portal. I've lost deer, and they stepped into the bushes and they were gone. And they didn't go through a portal. They didn't stand up and do the Doctor Strange, wave their hands and walk through a glowing disc. They just disappeared. That's because they're very good and very well adapted to their environment. So again, I'm sorry, but I just can't. I just can't be browbeat by people that make all these wild speculation, wild claims, and give you nothing, give you no proof. And if you question it, you're the asshole. So I'm not doing it anymore. And if that loses me some viewers, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you feel that way, but that's just how it is. I mean, I refuse to just believe craziness, because just because I can't prove you wrong doesn't mean you're right. And guarantee you, if you made some wild claim like that in a court of law, you'd be taking a psych eval. You would be locked up and put in a mental ward until a psychiatrist could evaluate you. You don't get to just try to present that as evidence and not be able to back it up. So, again, I'll get off my soapbox now. Robbie, you got anything to add?
No, I mean, I guess I kind of lost my cool a little bit too, but it's the same thing. You can only take so much before it gets to the point where you're just like, we sit here and I think we try to be as neutral and open as possible and let people. We've had people on the show that have had vastly different opinions about things than we do, and I think we've been very open to let people have the platform to say, okay, yeah, that's what you think. That's fine. And it just, people have come on our show and argued with us and made us feel this way. And it's just, you can only take so much before it gets to the point where you're just like, you know what? I believe what you want to believe, but quit trying to shove it down my throat because I don't believe what you believe. And I guess tonight was just one of those nights with me and you both had kind of like Misty said in the welcome to my give a damn is busted. Yeah,
again, I apologize for letting my temper get to me like that, but I've had about enough of getting beat over the head because I don't believe these wild claims. just on the basis of them making the claim. I've had some odd experiences, and I've done my best to explain them. But and I've seen what I believe were ghosts. Um, and I've had a couple of paranormal experiences that I can't fully explain, but that doesn't mean I'm going to use that as an explanation for literally everything I don't understand. Um, Antonio Vasquez says, Robbie, as a cop, have you ever seen a Dogman or a Sasquatch?
Yeah, I just asked him. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I've seen them, but I've never while on duty.
Right.
That I know of, anyway. Could have drove right by a bunch of them and just never have seen them. And because I spent of my almost 30-year career, I probably spent 15 of that on night shift. So there's no telling what I drove by that I didn't see that saw me.
Same here, man. I've been lots of places that gave me the heebie-jeebies.
Oh yeah.
And I've both as a cop and not have gone places where I got out of the car at night and it was just absolutely dead quiet, which is not a normal feeling. So, was it some sort of big predator? More than likely, but what kind of predator, we don't know. Because it's not normal for the woods to be that dead quiet, and it is pretty unnerving. It was completely quiet that night at Joe Bald.
Yeah. It was and it was, we stepped out of the car and it was quiet.
Right.
It was like stepping into a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
Like when Jessica and I were in Georgia, we were sitting there having to talk. We were having to almost yell at each other because the insects were so loud, and all of a sudden it just like that stopped. When me and you and Noah got out of the car at Joe Ball that first time, it got out and there was just nothing. It's kind of that way when me and Johnny were in DeMumbers Bay though, but that was broad daylight. That was 11 o'clock in the morning.
DeMumbers Bay is a creepy, creepy place. Even in broad daylight, it's creepy.
That's Jason Voorhees territory. Said it once, I'll say it a million more times. If he'd have stepped out from behind a tree, it would not surprise me.
Yeah, nothing would surprise me in northern Illinois.
I'd have shot the shit out of him, but it wouldn't have surprised me. Yeah, here's what it is.
I don't blame you. I would have too. And you see those videos. I know this is totally off topic. But you ever see those videos of like people are driving down the road and there's like a clown in the middle of the road that starts chasing them? Don't do that to me, folks. I mean, I get it was probably somebody pulling a prank for TikTok clicks. But if I'm out in the middle of nowhere and some guy in a clown costume starts charging me, he's getting shot.
Yeah, that. I hope I never get on that scare tactics or anything like that, because if I'm ever walking down a dark hallway to take some paper somewhere and some crazy thing jumps out at me, they're probably going to have to. That show will never see the light of day because I'll probably be in jail for shooting somebody.
Well, folks, we are at the 2-hour mark. We're going to start winding things down. Just want to take a quick second and remind you guys of the 22 a Day Foundation. We lose 22 men and women, service members, veterans to suicide every year, every day, 22 a day. So, that is 22 too many, folks. Check on your friends and family who are first responders or veterans or even active military, because you never know when that text from you or that phone call from you might be what keeps them off that hedge, because nobody should have to face the demons alone. And we all have to face them at one point or another. People that have served in any capacity, they've all had to experience things that aren't always easy to deal with. So, again, check on your friends and family who are first responders in any capacity or veterans, no matter what branch they served in, because even sometimes the people you think don't need it the most. So reach out, let them know you're thinking about them, let them know you care, and let's get 22 a day down to 0. That would be the goal. And we're going to go ahead and close it out with the toast. We've been doing that for a while, and I'm pretty proud of it. So we're going to keep it up. It's an old Irish drinking song called "The Parting Glass," and if you listen to the words, it's talking about a lot more than just a couple of old paddies going home at the end of the night because the bar is closing. It's talking about saying goodbye to those we've lost along the way. So if you guys will raise a glass of whatever it is you're drinking, doesn't matter what it is, and we'll close out the show. And the toast is, but since it fell into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night, and joy be to you all. Good night, everyone.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on Ex Machina. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.